Hello? Yeah. Where did all my people go? Right, we're back again for the, yeah, I guess it's the final talk, right? Because after that, we only have closing remarks, which is going to be very interesting. But what better way to end the day with a talk by my dear friend, Ben. Ben is sound, sound is Ben. So no further introduction needed, I think. Ben, sound.
Thank you very much. So, thank you very much. Yeah, so I'm Ben McCulloch. As Michael was saying, I'm sound, so I have a sound background, sound engineering and music, going into conversation design. And with VUX World, we do have a monopoly on yellow. To the extent that when Coldplay play that song live, they have to pay Kane royalties. And anytime he tries to offer you a banana to eat, it's like, Kane, you don't need to work right now. Get that yellow out my face. Okay, so let's go on with the talk. So this talk is called A Moment of Your Time. It's actually not what I applied with, but very similar to the original concept for the talk. I want to start with this quote by Jean-Michel Basquiat, incredible artist. As you can see, art is how we decorate space, music is how we decorate time. So if you think about it, you go to a gallery, you see a piece of artwork, it's up to you how long you want to take take this in. You can very quickly see this piece of art and just, walk by it in an instant, take in what you want and you go, or you could spend hours, days, weeks, as long as you want with this piece of art. On the other hand, with music, it takes as long as it takes. There's a start, there's a middle, and there's an end. It's moment to moment to moment. From the introduction, the themes get developed towards the end. With music, you can only really sum up what you've experienced at the end of it, when it finishes, and you look back and you've got the whole story, the progression. And I would argue, and I feel like it's quite valid to say that conversations are much more like music. They develop over time, they evolve. It's moment to moment to moment. And that's what I want to look at today. It may seem like we're looking at some of the basics, but I want to hopefully go a little bit deeper. So, and then, with conversations, as I say, they're more like music, moment to moment. And with digital conversations, this has a huge effect because if you consider that a system has latency, this means that you communicate with it, and it may take time for the answer to come back. In a conversation, if we're speaking with someone and their response takes time, that's a message. It communicates something to us. Why are they taking time to reply? It matters. Also, they found that with chatbots, if the responses came too quick, people were like, whoa, this is really uncomfortable. Why is it responding so quickly? It needs to feel as if it's actually taking time to process the responses. And the other thing to say is that you can have timeouts where, you're talking with a chatbot, you go away to make a cup of tea, whatever, let the dog out, and you might come back and find that the chatbot has timed out and you have to start from the beginning again. So time matters, moment to moment to moment. I'll just take a drink. So as you can see, very common website. I don't actually use much text in my slides. I like to have pictures and talk about them. So this is just a straight screen grab from Amazon. And so it's a graphical user interface. Anything you want to do on that screen, you choose your path through it. You can, of course, we've now got to the point with graphical user interfaces where there's a standard way of presenting the information. So you can choose how you want to navigate through this. You're in control. You choose how you navigate through your path. With a conversational interface, you're actually not really in control. The bot is in control of how your time, sorry, I'm not sure what happened there. Thank you. The bot's in control of how your time's going to be spent. So if you're talking with a bot and suddenly there's latency in the system, you're just waiting. You're waiting for what's going to happen next because the bot is leading you through the path. That's a massive difference, of course, between graphical interfaces and conversational, something you may have thought of before, but I want to go deeper into it. So the bot is in control of your time, which ultimately means that the design team and the development team who created that bot have made choices that affect your time. Oh, sorry, button's not working. Oh, oh, come on. Maybe if I talk to it, it'll... Please, can you move on one slide? The magic. So, I have completely ruined Basquiat's quote. Nothing to do with Basquiat. He's a beautiful, incredible artist. This is me messing with his words. So, if we take his quote and change it, then you can say GUIs, graphical user interfaces, decorate space, and conversations decorate time, and potentially space. If it's a multimodal conversation, then of course you are considering the arrangement of symbols visually, or perhaps anything like emojis, or even the user's expression. You can detect like body language and so on. But really, the fundamental is time. In every conversation, it's always moment to moment to moment, start to middle to end. And so, when a conversation decorates time, you know, when you have your happy path, your most direct route through, there is a minimal amount of time that that path can take. You can't shorten that. It would be so good, and perhaps this is going to be possible in the future, but if you could say to the bot, you know, shut up, speak quicker, shorten it, I'm driving, I don't have time to talk to you, say that quicker, don't be so wordy, that would be fantastic. I'm not sure if anyone's doing that yet, but that's where we should be going. So there's a minimum amount of time for the happy path. We have limitations. As I said, the bot is in control of your time. These are, you know, various experiences I've had with bots. None of them actually said barge in unavailable, but that's a huge thing. You know, you're talking with the bot, and you try to interrupt it to say ask it to move on, and it just keeps talking over you. So at that moment, you're not in control of the time of the experience, it is. It has to finish what it's saying, and that could be, I don't know, a 20-second utterance, and you already know how you want it. You already know what it's going to say, and you want it to move on. But it doesn't let you, because it's in control of your time. As I said, the design team behind the scenes have made these choices. So what I would say is, my argument is that when we consider the time feel of a conversational experience, how it feels for the user to go from moment to moment to moment through it, that's where there's huge potential for making better experiences. And this is Pro Tools. As I said, I'm originally like sound editor and sound designer, so this is software that I know very well. And this is software for creating sound, music, sound design, whatever you want. And as you see, it's completely visual. And so many of our tools for designers are visual. This represents time, left to right. So if you pressed play, it would go from left to right. But you have these visual representations of what's going to happen in time. It's completely abstract. I would say the same as with flowchart. When you look at your flowchart in any of our tools for designing conversations, you can't look at that and say, okay, that's going to take 5 minutes to get through. Of course, still you're just generally considering the happy path, and then you would consider the deviations from that happy path, but how can you know how long that's going to take? So at that point, you're making choices for the end user about how their time's going to be spent, and you might not actually know how long it's going to take. For me, this is a huge thing. This is something we should be considering. So Sorry, I put my notes onto my phone because I thought that there would be notes on screen, so I'm just looking through. So yeah, sorry. Design tools are visual. It's the same, if you're writing your utterances in the word processor, you can think, okay, word per minute, how long is it going to take for text-to-speech or the voice talent to say? And you can give a kind of very rough metric. People speak at about 160 words per minute, but it's rough, it's general. You're not really able to make a close enough estimation of how long the experience will be. So what I think, and it's also what VUX World are proposing, is that we think about the entire experience. Think about the entire user journey from the very first moment they interact with the brand. Thinking about Coldplay still. The very first moment they interact with the brand to the very end. Talking about time. And where are the conversations within that entire experience? We don't need to solve everything with a conversation. Sometimes a conversation is really not the best way to solve a problem. We even have, great talk earlier from Stephen from Human First talking about NLU. That's, of course, a massively important part of the process. You can use NLU to detect the intent of the user. You don't have to reply to them with a conversation. You can get their intent and then perhaps play them a video. There are so many ways we can use the components we have to speed up the process, to take people to where they want to go quicker. So, the whole experience, start to end, where are the conversations? Actually, Artie Merritt is doing a talk upstairs, and I want to give one of his great examples so he can actually be in two places at once. He gave this fantastic example where in a conversation, it's with a car insurance provider. Someone has to input all of their details, their name, their address, their date of birth, and so on. So instead of having them either say that or type it, why not just get them hold up their driver's license to their camera on their phone, and it scans it and extracts all of that information. So in in a few seconds, all of that information goes into the system instead of them, putting the onus on the user to have to input it. There was another great one from Dawn Harpster from TalkDesk where she said, if a user is on a website and they're adding items to their shopping cart and they instantly go to the chatbot, then the best thing the chatbot can do at that moment is, they have the data that the user was adding to the shopping cart. So it would say, hey, are you contacting about what's in your shopping cart? Instead of saying, hi, I'm ShoppyBot, what do you want to talk about? Go straight to what you think they want to talk about with some amount of certainty, and you've sped up their user. There's still start, middle, and end, but you've put the start much later with confidence. If you're wrong, the conversation just goes back, but you can probably assume that you're right. So, moment to moment to moment. What we're creating is ambient computing. All of these people could be talking with conversational AI. Each of them will have different needs. Each of them will have a different time feel, different experience of time. One of them could be rushing, in a real rush. They don't want to be wordy. They don't want too much information. They just want to jump through. Someone else could be sauntering along and they're like, talk to me, whatever you want. Tell me a joke, I'm fine, I love it all. I've got time for this. From personal experience, with my kids, if they're at my feet asking for more juice or whatever, if I'm talking to Alexa, I'm utterly amazed that it can detect what I'm saying at the same time as what my children are saying. But when it talks back to me, I would really love if it, cut to the chase and didn't, the utterances weren't too long, because I've got other voices around me screaming for my attention. So we should be able to adjust to each user's time. And the way you do that is with data and connections. You have the data, what you know about the user, their preferences, what they're doing, and you use that to inform the conversation and hopefully speed it up and get them to what they want. So, my last slide. I say time is our canvas. So let's learn to design time in the way that graphical user interface designers learnt to design space. How they learnt the best ways to arrange space to help users through. That is what we should be doing with time, because conversations evolve over time. We need to adjust to the users, and we need to work within the limitations of what we have for great experiences. So I've got a few questions that you could ask when you're working on something about how we can do this. In the entire user journey, which parts should be conversations? How can we use data to shorten the conversations? How can we make time feel dynamic? You know, if time if conversations evolve over time like music, with music, we can have a crescendo, we can build up to something, we can make it feel dynamic, like we're really getting towards a very satisfying conclusion and resolution. And conversations are a sequence of moments, so what should happen from moment to moment? How should the flow feel? So I'd say, if we're considering time, we're going to make better experiences, and that's what I recommend we do. So, please come along tomorrow when VUX will host a stage upstairs presented by Core AI, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ben. It never ceases to amaze me how you bring all these subtle shades of meaning, of sound, of design canvas, if you will, for sound. And it's always such a pleasure to listen to you. We do have quite a lot of room for questions, remarks. I see one hand over there. Perhaps we can get a mic to that. Well, I think I'm closest. No, that's fine.
Okay, thank you for your talk. This is the last talk today, and I feel bad about this, but I'm going to ask kind of an unfriendly question.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
So, I've been worrying about this for a while, and which is sort of the space to think. You know, there was actually a big art project done at University of Bath, my former university, about the ringtones, that they inject a kind of music that maybe you don't want to hear right now. Maybe you were writing some great thing in your head, you know, and suddenly you're yanked into some pop song, and then you forget everything, you know. And I'm worried about even how much time I spend looking at my phone reading the news, you know, let alone, you know, playing games or whatever, but instead of just thinking. And so I wonder if it becomes too easy to have, as we were talking about before, how attractive conversation is to humans. I wonder if there's something about that we could make it too easy somehow to be embraced. I mean, I get and I appreciate. In fact, maybe maybe the answer is going to be that if you're sufficiently adjustable, you can really be light touch and leave people alone. But anyway, I just worry about this pervasiveness.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's a great point. I mean, honestly, I'm not. One of the things that I think of when you say this is that, you know, I find often when I'm looking on a website, I use read mode if I'm reading news or something, because all the adverts, all of that extra noise is overwhelming, and I often find it's quite hard to focus. And if we're talking about sound, which is of course only one aspect of this, we can only focus on one stream of sound at a time. If we hear two voices at the same time, that's chaos. We can't follow both of them. You know, like when I was working in sound mixing for film and TV, we're always thinking from moment to moment to moment, what is the most important thing to focus on? So I think if anyone was going to try and overwhelm us with noise, they would fail so quick, because you would just switch it off. It would be horrible. The pervasiveness of conversations in other modalities, I mean, I'm not sure, like if a chatbot just suddenly popped up, I think it's so quickly to just say go away, you know, like if, I don't know, I'm thinking about this. It's a very good point, it's very thought-provoking. Like if I'm on social media and a friend messages me, of course I feel the need to reply to them, somebody could manipulate that. But if it was a brand and it's at a moment when I'm focusing on something else and they're trying to grab my conversation with that, I feel I would probably be able to ignore it, but that's just me. I don't know. Does that give any enlightenment?
Does it answer your question?
The difficult
I'm
question.
sorry, I didn't understand.
No, I'm glad to have the discussion. I guess I don't feel like I want AI to be proactive unless I've programmed it to be, to interrupt me, like, my alarm, basically.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I want to have a capacity. Although I recognize in other humans, sometimes we have to allow them to interrupt us because things are urgent.
Yeah.
But I don't see that it's ever going to benefit. Well, maybe not never going to benefit. But unless there's something where you want to be pulled out of yourself sometimes. But basically, I would worry about having really proactive such systems. But reactive, the bridge of the enterprise thing, where if you say, "Yeah, help me catch that train. Is that the train I'm supposed to go to?" Then I totally get that.
Sure. I mean, on the note of proactiveness, I genuinely think if it's done well, that is going to help people immeasurably, because you will, you're basically being that extremely useful assistant that knows what they need before they ask for it, and then just pop in and give it to them. And just to add to that, like if a brand was manipulating that, you would leave them so quick. Like if they were like pushing you all the time for a response, it would be such a bad design, I think. So I wonder that we would ever get into that situation, because I don't think it would work.
Can I just add a little thing? I was just thinking of how such a conversation would sound like, because like at first I was like, okay, that's probably going to say something like, "Hi, did you know that we also offer blah 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 blah?" But if we want to make it really kind of conversational with a little nudge, I can like totally imagine my phone actually doing like and it's like, excuse me, excuse me. Can I have a moment of your time, please? And when you say no, that would actually, to me, sound like a very kind of polite kind of, which I would be, I guess, comfortable with. But I'm not quite sure.
So there's this whole thing about like when you're working and it's the telephone rings or whatever, that it sets you back 45 minutes in your work, right? I mean, there's never a time where you're free of time. That was one thing I disagreed also. We only have 80 years or whatever, and when you make someone unproductive for 2 hours because they were in the flow, and then you suddenly said something that you couldn't have known, but it reminds them of the fact that their dog just died or something. Then the proactive pushing, again, humans have to do it because we're peers, and some things will happen. But having a system come in and tell me you're not being productive enough, here's another way you could do it when I didn't ask,
Yeah, but thinking optimistically, if you could say to that system, "I'm busy right now, I'm in a flow, don't bother me," and it would be ready for you when you come out the flow to quickly get you through whatever you need to do, then it would be working with you to make sure that you can concentrate, But yeah, I feel like that's a fascinating area.
So my opinion on it is a lot of it comes down to time sensitivity. I love a reminder that I have a calendar, or that I have a meeting, or that I forgot to respond to somebody that I had told them I was going to on a given time. Proactive, non-time sensitive is very, very difficult. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be the challenge around this, is that there's stuff that's really important and time sensitive, and great, I want AI to remind me that, because I'm parrot brain, ferret, I'm going to go look at the next shiny object. But God help you if you tell me I forgot to check out my Amazon shopping cart, which my Alexa does, and I immediately turn that thing off.
Yeah,
so.
I get you. This is design, right? We need to find the best ways to do this, the best moments, the best opportunities. These are challenges.
We've got King in the back, and then
I've managed to steal a mic from somewhere.
Out of the way.
You make a really good point in terms of when you're having a conversation with an AI assistant, that assistant then becomes basically in control of your time. the lady down there kind of alluded to something which is akin to that, which is that when you think about the voice interface, not only are you in control of someone's time, but you're also feeding into someone's ears kind of organs which they can't switch off. So there is an enhanced responsibility there, because in that annoying ringtone example, that's got the potential to make someone feel annoyed, because you can't turn your ears off, and so what you hear can affect your emotions, and then it affects your experience, then it affects how you perceive the world or the company that you're interacting with. So I'm just curious about your thoughts in terms of how you assess or think of the current role or the current kind of prevalence of sound design in voice user interface design. Is it something that you think is focused on enough, not enough? What's your sort of estimations in terms of the role of sound design in voice user interface design today?
Yeah, sure, it's a great one. Thanks, boss.
That wasn't canned either. That was genuine.
I think, for example, as we saw with Poly AI, where you heard voice talent being used instead of text-to-speech, you can tell that there's a certain warmth and character in the voice which comes across, and synthetic speech is getting better and better at emulating human speech. Sorry, just to say, like, I would bunch voice design and even music into sound design. It's all sound. So even with speech generation, I think we're getting better and better at creating more dynamic ways of speaking, of making the assistant speak. So that's one area of sound design that's getting better and better. In terms of actual sound design itself, I think there is so much potential, One of the things that I was dreaming up was to use sound design in a sort of pragmatic role to create the context of the conversation, so that if, just the example that's first in my head, because I had an Amazon screenshot, like if you were talking with, for example, an Amazon store bot, and actually that's terrible because they own Alexa, so this is going to have all sorts of other context. But let's say, I don't know, well, actually the example I used was a pizza shop, pizza delivery service. So when you start speaking to it, you would speak to the assistant, but you would hear in the background that they're in the restaurant, and you know that you've entered the experience, that's the start, and you make your order. And then as they take you through the order, you would hear the kitchen, where they're chopping up all the ingredients, and you have the context of where you are in the conversation from that. And then you say, that's my order, and it finishes. And then later, if you come back and you're like, where's my pizza? It's not been delivered. You could get your answer and you hear the sound of the moped as they're literally delivering it to you. Or you would hear the sound of the kitchen and you know it's still being made. And I think there are all sorts of opportunities like this to use sound design to reinforce the conversation. It could be even quicker, like ear cons. Sorry, is that 1 minute, Mike? One more question, okay. Okay. Ear cons, as in sonic icons, which, the example that I think we all know is the waste paper basket from your computer, where you put something in the bin and you hear like the sound as it hits the bin. And that's much quicker than it saying your items have been deleted. You just hear the sound and you get there quicker. And I think also in terms of engagement, if we're just using words, then you can do that very well. But if you also use sounds or even music, you can express things which might just grab people's attention in better ways, especially when they're pressed for time. So I think there's a huge amount of potential. It's something that I hope we get to do, boss.
Do you think you can make it a short answer?
I can make it a 5-word answer.
I would really love to give the last question.
Sure. And it's Maria.
Think.
Just one final question and then we're kind of wrapped up.
I was going to say that thankfully it's a follow-up question to Kane's, because I also wanted to tap into your audio superpowers, specifically about waiting in queues, you know, when you're on hold.
Oh, yeah.
There is nothing more irritating for me to, you know, you have a jingle and you may like the music or hate the music, but at least you switch off and you know, okay, now I'm waiting for a human or whatever, for a different bot or whatever.
Yeah.
But then some companies decide to plug in marketing messages. So, do you know, you can go to our website, and there's nothing more irritating, because for me, the jingle, or whatever the jingle, means that I can relax and do something else, and then I will know when a human comes on.
Yeah.
And then comes the message when I'm thinking, oh, is someone on the line? No, it's not. And there's nothing more irritating. So my question is, how would you, as a sound designer, how would you best design an on-hold queue? You know, you're on hold. Do you only play music? Perhaps every 30 seconds you play, now you're on queue, in queue or whatever. Or how would you leverage that?
Sure, and I need to make this quick, don't I?
Sorry,
Okay.
can't do that.
It's the last one. Okay. So, well, the first thing, you know, exactly as you're saying, it can become very irritating, because if we hear looped sound, as soon as we realize it's a loop, it's like you just know that, like, you know that you don't have to listen anymore. So it's essentially, and if it's not very good music and it's looping over and over, then that gets very annoying. And also, it reminds you how long you've been waiting. The more loops you've heard, you're like, oh my God, this is dragging on and on and on and on. So I would say the best way to work with that would be to do it dynamically, to have some kind of system that creates, which I think is completely possible. We can generate music based on various parameters, and it will just keep spitting out different variations of that music forever. To have that, and to know how long the person has been waiting, to know if they should receive some kind of message, and to probably preempt it with some kind of warning that this isn't you're not going to speak with the agent, this is just an advert. I'm not sure exactly right now how they would do that. But yeah, to do it dynamically, I think that would be the only way, because loops, you know, in any scenario, if you notice the loop, then it can be very annoying. Whatever the original intention was with that design, to have lovely music, and then the actual end user hears it and it's like, oh, this is looping, then the original intention has died and it's become something really horrible.
Just as with any conversational experience, right?
Yeah.
Avoid loops.
Exactly.
That's probably the prime
Exactly.
directive there.
Yeah, the only loop should be the feedback loop.
And Fruity Loop.
Sorry?
And Fruity Loop.
Fruity Loop? You mean breakfast cereal? Is that what we need to eat
It's
to
a
become good
program.
conversation
It's a
design? Is that your
design
secret? Is it
program.
Fruity Loops?
Actually, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We should talk about that then.
Well, we're just told everyone. So.
Thank you so much for giving us a bit more of your time with this wonderful,
Thank you.
improvised interaction. And as usual, it was amazing.